mini. We've also tried taking cuttings from 2-year-old woods, and they still branched out and fruited that same year. This 1-year cutting, if you grow it now,
pot, but they take 1 year
from 2 nodes,
like 3-foot, 4-foot cuttings,
like that will fruit this year. It will grow into a tree that looks like this one, and maybe even a little bit taller, and then it will fruit. So they're very fast. You don't have to be too patient to grow figs. We've even tried in the summertime when it grew the 15-foot and we trimmed it back to keep it smaller, we planted those same year cuttings and they still rooted, but they didn't root until the following year. So you could do pretty much cuttings anytime. If you're afraid your tree is like dying or you have to move away and you really want to take it with you, then we've tried all the different years and they've been pretty successful. So the fastest way I do it here is just stick it in. And that's how you mass produce. So you can get a line like a conveyor belt going, just have someone fill up all the pots and then stick it in and chop it, and then the final touch is the fertilizer.
But Leah, I have a question. What if you only have like one branch, maybe one of the branches here that you pay good money for, and you really want to optimize your chance for rooting success? What would you do then?
So if you have one branch, then I definitely recommend using a sterile soil so that you know for sure you're not going to cause any root rot for it. In this potting soil, there's the perfect amount of peat moss to create oxygen around the roots when they do form. So you don't have to worry about overwatering it. These pots can sit in soil and still have enough oxygen for the roots to develop and breathe. So when we do start taking the cuttings, we always keep the soil moist and never let it dry out. So that's why they're underneath our plant tables, because we water our plants not this time of year, not every single day, but maybe every other day. And then they just get the water from the plants above. And yeah, that's one of the most important things is to make sure they don't dry out until you see them starting to root out and leaf out. That means the roots are forming. And usually in this size container, it takes about 3 months for them to fully root and develop. You could wait a little bit longer just to be safe until you see roots coming out of the side, which they'll do that because they're pretty aggressive. So you'll be able to see when they're ready to up pot or plant directly into the ground. Any questions yet? Yes.
The first node is under the ground.
Yes, yeah. So the nodes I have, like on this one, there's 3. So I have 2 under the ground, under the soil, and 1 sticking up. Sometimes the ones on top don't grow, and then the ones below you'll see popping out of the soil. So, or sometimes all the nodes will start to branch out. So. The more nodes you have, the more branches you'll get, but we just like to do smaller cuttings because they don't dry out as fast when they start to grow, and when they do grow, they grow just fine.
Do you leave these pots with the newly planted fig sticks in the shady area or partial shade or full sun?
It's partial sun. Some get morning sun, some get afternoon sun. You could do filtered, but they're pretty hardy to either. If you did do full sun, you just have to keep them moist every single day. Don't let them dry out at all, because the heat is what will make them grow really fast and get established. And then also the fertilizer is very important too. So the reason why we use Osmocote, it's a time release fertilizer, and it doesn't have anything that could cause the bacteria to grow. It's just the pure minerals. So we shake it on top, just like there's a little scooper in there, so 1 scoop, and then water it in, and it lasts 6 months. So then after your plant is rooted and ready to up pot or go in the ground, then that's when we recommend using an organic fertilizer, because it has all the nutrients and then the mycorrhizae that help the roots in the ground and in pots that the plant needs. So this is better to use once it is established. Yes.
I went to a place called Laguna Hills Nursery, and I talked to a very distinguished guy there named Gary, and I came to pick up Gary's Best, but this gentleman was very insistent I wanted the acid mix, and I didn't dare discuss it with him. But
Yes.
maybe you could go over why we want the acid mix instead of Gary's Best, or why don't we mix them, or what happens?
The reason why we use the acid mix for propagating is because it holds a little more water, so it's safer, because the top pot is fine too, the other soil that we make, but it has sand in it, so it does dry out faster and drain a little bit more. But the acid mix, it stays moist pretty well, and you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with either, really, but
So
yeah.
it's hydrosity, not pH we're talking.
Right. The top pot is a very similar pH, so it's mostly just keeping the moisture levels high.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Just curious, you call the phi, that's pretty low. What contributes to that low pH?
Dragon fruit
The
plant,
the peat
Gary's
moss.
Best.
The peat moss is what has the the acidity, high
We
acidity,
want Gary's
low
Best.
pH.
Yeah,
So that is what, since this is 50% peat moss, then that's what contributes to it. You're welcome. Yeah, and so if anyone has any more questions later on, I have a booth over there. I have brought some coupons and business cards, 20% off one item if you'd like to visit our store. And I have some soil samples too. So yes, feel free to ask questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we talk about pruning, how many of you have heard about permanent soil for the first time today? Permanent potting soil. First time today, just learned about it. Gary's Best and the acidic mix are considered permanent potting soils. The issues with a lot of the other products is that they break down quickly, and you'll notice that most of the plants at Laguna Hills Nursery are all potted in Gary's potting mixes, and that basically allows the trees to stay at the position that they're supposed to be in the pot. When you go to planting them in your own property, they won't sink in the potting holes that you prepare for your plants, and that's basically the science and the innovation behind the Gary's Best products, is being a permanent potting soil mix, and that creates a much happier potted, happier plant. So thank you.
So would you recommend Gary's for starting tree cuttings?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's the stuff to use.
Yeah, so Gary's Best is Gary Matsuoka, who's the owner of Laguna Hills Nursery, and Leah's the daughter of Gary, if you didn't know. I thought you knew. Or you're teasing me. That's fine.
No, I'm just suggesting Gary's is a great way to start cutting.
Absolutely. You're basically starting with the right product, and then it's basically, if it's going to move to the next container life, you'll continue with the Gary's products in the next container, or if it's going in the ground. I've seen a lot of examples, especially on Facebook, with people uprooting their trees that have sunk in the potting holes. I've seen a lot of people uprooting the trees that they planted in their holes like 2 to 3 years later because it's sunk with the compost mixes and stuff that they've used for their in-ground mixes. And so another reason, even for your in-ground plantings, to be using a Gary's Best type product, again, because the permanent soil, and that won't settle and cause the tree to fall below the ground level that you want it to be at, or at least even slightly above, at least at the initial planting. Anyways, I want to pass the floor. I'll take more questions on my turn. I want